Good hot afternoon, friends. I know in my area we are seeing several 100-degree days in a row, and so a lot of my friends are turning to slow cookers or crock pots in order to cook their meals every day, as it produces less heat in the kitchen during these hot days. So I've also decided that God uses a crock pot as his preferred method in cooking with us. He'll put all of the right ingredients into us as his believer and then turn the heat on to low or high, depending on how quote unquote fast he wants to produce those things in our lives. But with either heat setting, it is still a pretty slow process. I was thinking about Joseph, and as a young boy, when he had those dreams, he was pretty prideful, and his dreams were about his entire family bowing down to him. So he needed a little bit of humility worked into his life to become the leader that God saw him as, that would save the entire area from famine. So what was God's set time for that? That would be 13 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Moses was also a hot-tempered man who was depending upon his own strength to deliver his people from slavery. So what was God's perfect ingredients to make Moses into the leader that he needed him to be? That would be 40 years in a desert with a large family of in-laws nearby and the smell of sheep. And I've determined in my own life that God has his own set of ingredients and his own time length for the things that he wants to grow in me and to accomplish in me. Like at the beginning of this year, when I was going to read through the Bible again in a year, and I started out with 3 chapters a day, and God told me no, that he only wanted me to read 1 chapter a day. And, I kind of balked at that because that was going to take me 3 years to accomplish, and I'm not really one to plan that far out in advance, and I really don't like to take 3 years to read 1 book. But as I've been doing this now for 7 months, I really have enjoyed it. And I don't read through my 1 chapter a day in 5 minutes and then I'm done and I check that box. No, I take about 30 minutes. So I'll read through the chapter. I take notes as I go about things that may jump out at me in that chapter, or interesting facts, and reading through a chapter slowly, you can also make connections for the chapters that you've read previously. Like when I just read in Joshua 24 the other day that Joseph's bones were finally buried in the promised land. The specific place his bones had been buried was purchased by Jacob some 400 years beforehand. So that was kind of an interesting fact as I read. But had I just been reading through it quickly, I would have missed that connection. And then also as I read through my chapter a day, I'm also picking out a characteristic or a name of God for that chapter. So by the time that I'm done reading the Bible through chapter by chapter, day by day, I'll have over 1,200 names or characteristics of God as found in his word. So that's pretty cool. But what really got me thinking about God using the slow cooker in our lives was, when I went to working part-time, I was really determined that I was going to write a best-selling novel within that year. Like I gave myself 1 year to write a book, or I would go back to working full-time. And, we're 7 months into this, and I have the topic for the book, and I have what I want to write about, but I just have not had that motivation to do it. And so I was feeling kind of frustrated because, sorry, my computer turned off. I was feeling kind of frustrated because I wanted to have this done, but we're 7 months in and I haven't even started. And so that's when I cried out to God. Sorry, I'm kind of scrolling and kind of get all this off my blog. So I kind of cried out to God as to why we're 7 months in and He hasn't really given me the motivation to start on this book that He gave me the idea for. You know, I at first was being pretty distracted by filling up my time with things, so I removed distractions. After that, I thought maybe I heard Him wrong, so I started researching for a different book. Maybe He wanted me to write a Bible study first. Was there unconfessed sin in my life that was keeping me from hearing Him speak? And did I maybe do the hokey pokey incorrectly in turning to the left instead of the right? We can be silly sometimes and think, it's us that's holding up the line. And sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not. So as I prayed about this the other day, God really impressed upon my heart, that when I said I was going to write a book in a year after He gave me that idea and the time to do it, that was something that I said. God never said that. He never gave me His timeline to write this book that would hopefully one day lead to the organization I wanted to start. I had said that, and so He also revealed to me that as I'm reading one chapter in His Word a day, that there are things that He's growing in me in that process as He's working these things into my life. And also lately, He's working things out of my life as there's been some conflicts with friends kind of out of the blue, that I've really been kind of broken over. And in hindsight, have really been able to go back and look at maybe why these conflicts happened and where I might have been wrong in what was my part in this. So He's adding ingredients into my life by slowing me down in His Word, but He's also removing things from my life by skimming off distractions and places where I have been accommodating sin instead of standing up against it. So God has it all worked out. That's the main thing. So if we're staying in God's will and we're staying on God's path, then we can never be late for God's plan. And that would be the key takeaway from this. We're going to stay in His will. So you ask yourself, am I in accordance with God? Do I feel like there's any unconfessed sin in my life? If I feel like I'm connected to God, then okay, move on to the next question. Am I for sure that I'm on the path that He has laid out for me? When I went to working part-time, I asked God for so many confirmations that this was His will because it was financial suicide. I liked working part-time, but as far as how things were going to get paid for, I was unsure. And He just confirmed to me over and over, and He still confirms to me that this is His will. So I knew that I was in His will. I knew that I was on His path. And so now I can rest in knowing that I'm not going to be late for His plan. He wants me to write this book. He wants me to start this organization, but it's going to be on His timeline, not on my own. I like to rush things. I'm not a very patient person, and I am very guilty of rushing ahead of God or even asking Him to bless things in my life that are not His will or in His plan for me. So I just want to encourage you today, friend. God, again, His time is not our time. His ways are not our ways. As I look back on some really amazing answered prayers in my life, and I see that they took years to answer,